Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. So I want you to, for this practice, just if you are sitting in the tahiyat position, then lengthening your upper body. If you're sitting on a chair, then support your lower body, lower self, lower back on the chair. Finding the sense of grounding, placing your hand on your thighs, feeling your feet on the ground, just grounding yourself in the space that you're in. Yet dropping your shoulders, bringing a sense of ease in your body. Lowering your gaze, perhaps softening your gaze or closing your eyes. Let's take a deep breath together, and as we take the first deep breath, try to gather your mind and your attention on your breath. Taking a deep breath in and a long breath out. As we do a few more breaths, try to relax your body, let go of the stress, the difficulty, whatever you were in before you came in, or whatever you have to get to, letting those go, letting the past or the future go and arriving here in this present moment. Taking a few breaths together, deep breath in, and a long breath out. As we take another deep breath together, bringing a sense of awareness of God in your heart. If it helps, even placing your hand on your heart and trying to remember God through your heart. Taking a deep breath in and a long breath out. Bismillah. Imam al-Muhasibi asked us to also take one more step and quiet our inner voice, the inner thoughts, the inner voice, and just quieting that for a moment and trying to be silent and just be present and still, remembering God from our heart. For this practice, we are going to revisit the journey of Hajar alayhi salam and the journey of the cultivation of heart of the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Hajjar alayhi salam. As they were going through a trial, as they were going through a test, as they were going through something that would be beyond difficult for us, thinking about times when we find any difficulty, thinking about times when we might have a very dire need, we might have a challenge, we might have someone that says something that throws us off, or we feel like reacting to, or life throws a curveball and we feel a little distracted, stressed, unfocused. In those moments, how do we cultivate spiritual and emotional well-being? How do we follow the heart of Hajar alayhi salam? How do we follow the practice of the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Just thinking for a moment that in that moment when I have a dire need, or I'm feeling stressed or difficulty, how can I take a moment of silence? Thinking about maybe a difficulty or a challenge that you want to work with for this practice. On a scale of 1 to 10, choosing something perhaps 6 or 7 is something a little bit easier than working with something too difficult or traumatic. Thinking of a challenge you want to work with, something you want to overcome, but at the same time it's not too difficult. It's easy for you to still finish the practice. As you think about that challenge, perhaps try to live that experience. Who are you with? What are you doing? What is that other person saying to you if there's another person involved? Or what is the situation you're in? And just bringing that to mind for a moment. Now let's start the practice. Bismillah. If you find any difficulty in your body, Just taking a deep breath in and letting go and just relaxing for a moment, bringing a sense of ease in your body. Right at the onset of a difficulty or a challenge or a trial, just starting to process that difficulty with silence, trying not to say anything through our tongue, and if possible, to also quiet our inner voice and try not to make any judgment in our heart. Just for a moment, can we be silent and just process it? Let that difficulty or let that emotional thing go through our mind without having to get carried away. Just sitting silently and letting it pass through. Think of yourself and your heart as vast as the sky. And the difficulty that is passing through, or the challenge that is passing through, think of those challenges or the challenge that you're working with as a cloud. Can we expand our heart as big as the sky and let this challenge pass through like a cloud? Just sitting silently without judging this difficulty as good or bad for you. Just being silent and returning to God. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري. Allah, expand our heart and make this task easy for me. Seeking Allah's protection and refuge. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Before I feel upset or angry or react in a way that may not be most ideal, seeking refuge. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Returning to the presence of God. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayk. Remembering that no one can harm or benefit, nothing can change my condition without Allah's permission. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So just staying in silence for a few moments. Now bringing this most positive expectation from silence, moving on to reliance, the most positive expectation that everything that happens to me from God is good for me, there is blessing for me, and God is sufficient for me. When we want to blame people, when we feel like complaining, when we want to expect from people, anyone or anything other than God, when we want to judge the situation we are in as good or bad, in that moment stopping and returning to God. La ilaha illallah. There is no one who can harm me or benefit me but God. Hasbi Allah ni'mal wakil. Just saying Hasbi Allah ni'mal wakil for a few moments from your heart without having to move your tongue. What are we afraid of? When we have that difficulty and we feel stressed or feel a difficult emotion, what are we afraid of? Are we afraid of losing something we love? Or are we afraid of letting go? What is our biggest fear in that situation?
For me,
Maybe something that we are fearing that we will lose, or perhaps to let go of control, not have the full control. Just for a moment, reflecting on that.
Can I say something? Hello? For me,
Yes, Sister Rohina, please go ahead. Bismillah.
for me, the fear is that I will react in the wrong way, and that will turn out as a bad deed, recorded as a bad deed in my book. That's the fear I have.
SubhanAllah. Okay, mashallah. Inshallah, we'll talk more about it after we finish the practice, inshallah. So just thinking, bringing to mind, what is that fear? What are we fearful of losing in that moment? Just reflecting on that for a moment. So how do we come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how do we think about the incident of Ibrahim alayhi salam as he was being thrown into the fire? And this was literally the fear of losing his life. As we reflect on Hajar alayhi salam, and she was in the middle of nowhere, and there could have been beasts, and there's no food, there's no water, there's no shelter, literally a danger to her life and the life of her baby, literally losing the most precious thing they have. And even in that moment, returning to the reliance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah, returning to that love and attachment of God, sacrificing the fear or the attachment you have and relying completely on Him, sacrificing the ego, asking Allah, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, برحمتك نستغيث أصلح لنا شأننا كله ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين. Allah, do not leave us to our ego, even for a blink of an eye. Even for a blink of an eye. And then channeling all the difficulty we have through a mindful prayer. That silence, relying on God, letting go of our ego, and then channeling our difficulty to Allah through these beautiful names. Ar-Raqib. Just repeating these names in our heart just for a few moments. Al-Raqib, Al-Hafiz, Al-Alim, Al-Samir, Al-Basir. Just for a few moments, being silent and remembering God through these names. Not giving up our hope and optimism in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we remember Allah through those names. Allah is always watching Al-Raqib. Allah is always protecting Al-Hafiz. Allah knows my difficulty and the depth of my heart. Al-Alim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears, even when I'm not moving my tongue, Allah hears the innermost thought and difficulty of my heart. Al-Basir, and Allah never misses my problem and my difficulties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges. Not giving up hope and remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to never give up hope. Never give up hope. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, bi rahmatika nastaghith. O the ever living, ever sustaining, we ask refuge and we ask shelter in your mercy. Visualizing this mercy of God descending upon our heart. Visualizing the protection of Allah all around us. Just trying to experience how does it feel if Allah sent his safety and his mercy and his blessing and his rahmah to our heart. How would that feel? Bringing a sense of gratitude for such a merciful God, bringing a sense of gratitude that every single cell in our body, the trillions of cells, the billions of neurons, every organ, every limb, we're soaked in the blessing of Allah, the mercy of Allah, from our head down to our toes. Just staying with this sense of gratitude for a moment. Now that we have cultivated the heart, cultivated the qualities of the prophets, quality of the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the heart of Hajar alayhi salam, how do we now get up and strive? What is our intention? What are we seeking? What does that effort look like? Like Hajar alayhi salam running between Safa and Marwa. How does our strive look like? What is our intention for that striving that will bring the opening of Zamzam? With the right foundation of our heart, the right cultivation of our heart, the right mindset, once we make that effort, inshallah, the openings of God will come, like our Zamzam will be opened. How do we lay the foundation of our Kaaba, our good deed that will be our legacy? What are some of your intentions? Just for a moment, making some intentions after this course is over. What are some intentions? What am I going to do with these practices, with these qualities? How am I going to strive? How am I going to make my impact? How am I going to travel to my best self? Let's make a few intentions in our heart. And throughout the day, may Allah accept from all of us. Ameen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Jazakallahu khairan, everybody, for this beautiful journey of last few days of practicing these together in Dhul Hijja. May Allah accept from us, guide us, bless us, accept from us, and continue to increase us. Inshallah, everybody that's listening to our recording, inshallah, I invite all of you to join me in the next Mindfulness Masterclass, which we will start in about a couple of months. I'd like to see you all in class, inshallah, and stay in touch. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi